We're only just 3 weeks away from the biggest wrestling show of the year, Wrestlemania. And whilst the matches, build up and all-round hype on Smackdown Live are looking great, it's a different story on the Raw brand. Compelling and well thought out storylines are being told on the blue brand, while matches just seem hastily put together on the red brand. Also, wrestlers on Raw don't seem to be utilised well, but those are just some of the ways SmackDown has shown it has become a much better show than Raw. Number 1. It's had tremendous build up to matches. On this week's edition of SmackDown Live, WWE continued its storyline of Vince McMahon screwing Kofi Kingston, as again this week he faced another insurmountable challenge. Now, in order to get a title shot against Daniel Bryan, Kingston needed to defeat Randy Orton, Samoa Joe, The Bar and Eric Rowan in a gauntlet match. It's safe to say the odds were heavily stacked against Kingston. Nevertheless, with true heart and determination, Kofi was going to give it his best shot, with his first contender being the Celtic warrior Sheamus. Even with the advantage of having Cesaro on the outside to get in a few cheap shots, the Dreadlock Dynamo, WWE's nickname not ours, managed to prevail by hitting the Trouble in Paradise to get the win. Next in was Cesaro, and the Swiss Superman almost looked as if he was going to put Kofi down with the neutralizer, but Kofi managed to counter and hit the SOS for the 3 count. Superstar number 3 was ex-Bludgeon Brother member Eric Rowan, who looked like he was going to pulverize him, but lucky for Kofi, he managed to get too carried away by grabbing a chair and getting himself disqualified. In frustration though, Rowan managed to inflict serious damage to Kofi by attacking him on the outside and driving him through the announcer's table with an iron claw. Things got worse as next up was Samoa Joe, who tried to take him out with some devastating strikes and an enziguri. Joe locked in a sleeper, but Kofi managed to counter with a jawbreaker. Things looked bleak for Kingston when the Samoan submission machine hit the ST Joe, but surprisingly, this only garnered a 2 count. Joe was ready to hit the muscle buster, but Kofi countered in a cradle to eliminate him. Joe then left by choking him out. Kofi had survived 4 wrestlers in a row, and only had to defeat Randy Orton to accomplish his dream of a title match at Wrestlemania. But after wrestling for almost 40 minutes straight, Kofi was evidently tired and didn't look like he was going to go on much longer. Randy Orton, being the viper he is, stalked his prey and toyed with him. Some might have even noticed a subtle callback of him calling Kofi stupid. Nevertheless, the fighting spirit in Kofi never gave up. Randy was going to go for an RKO, but like turning the reversal system off WWE 2K19, Kofi managed to counter another finish and hit the Trouble in Paradise. It eventually led to another roll-up for the win. Celebrations started with both Big E and Xavier Woods, as Kofi was now on his way to Mania to accomplish his dream. But they celebrated too soon, as Vince McMahon came out to announce that Orton wasn't the final boss. It was WWE Champion Daniel Bryan. Fresh Daniel Bryan made small work of Kingston, pinning him as once again Kofi was screwed out of a championship match. Now, it's a given that a match between Bryan and Kofi is going to happen at Mania ever since WWE changed the plan at Fastlane, but they have kept us engaged every week. The build-up is very similar to WrestleMania 30, when Daniel Bryan occupied Raw with the Yes Movement, where hundreds of fans refused to leave the ring until he got what he wanted. Perhaps next week, the New Day will rally up all the babyfaces who were watching the match to protest justice for Kofi, forcing Vince to give it to him. Whatever they do, they are telling a captivating storyline for their championship match at Mania. Plus, they didn't make his win unbelievable by having Kofi win clean over all of them. Effectively though, by putting Kofi through more and more insurmountable obstacles, he has become the biggest babyface on the brand, and fans want nothing more than to see him in the title picture at Mania to fulfill his dream. Daniel Bryan, on the other hand, has become the biggest heel, a clear contrast of what he was at WrestleMania 30 and what made him so popular, even calling Kofi a B+ player. Now, WWE could have simply placed Kofi in a title match, but they have managed to get the fans more emotionally invested by bringing out so many emotions like anger, sadness, happiness, and confusion throughout the weeks. Thus, fans will no doubt be eager to tune into next week's SmackDown to see how Kofi will overcome the odds and see whether next week could be the moment Kofi finally gets his championship opportunity. WWE has cleverly made the moment of just the thought of Kofi wrestling for the title a major deal. It's probably the best example of demonstrating how a storyline can be overbooked, as it should lead to a massive payoff. But switch over to Raw, where the build and hype for the Universal Championship is nowhere near the same level. This is obviously down to putting the belt on a part-timer, but that was WWE's mistake in the first place. They shouldn't have had Lesnar go over Strowman at the Crown Jewel. It hasn't by far been the worst ever build-up to a Mania Championship match, but with the showcase of the Immortals only just around the corner, you'd think that we'd be invested in the brand's most important match. Sadly, most of us aren't. It's not entirely the same, as the Raw Women's Championship match is still highly anticipated, but WWE made the mistake of turning what could have been a simple storyline into a convoluted mess. Despite having the same storyline goal, Kofi's path has been much more straightforward, unfairly taking away what he's been fighting for every week. With Becky Lynch, it was, you won a chance at the Rumble and we're going to take that away, but now you're going to be injured, now you're going to be anti-authority, now we're going to add your former rival into the mix. Now Ronda Rousey is the ultimate heel, Lynch is the underdog babyface, and Charlotte, well, you're just here for the sake of it. The writers involved in this storyline should take note of the Kofi storyline. It just plays out much better and gets the point across without having to confuse things. Number 2. A better choice of matches and utilization of wrestlers. Many fans were disappointed to hear that Kurt Angle chose Baron Corbin to be his last opponent ever in WWE, as many fans took to social media to express their dismay. It was a poor choice and the opponent should have been reserved for somebody more fitting like John Cena. But the bad booking doesn't stop there, however. Finally, it seems like SmackDown is treating their mid-card seriously, and whilst they have been guilty of playing hot potato with the United States Championship, at least the championship matches they have delivered on the blue brand are exciting. Sadly on Raw, the Intercontinental Championship has lost a lot of oomph lately. Finn Balor could have done wonders with the belt and he carried it into Mania, but they decided to put the title back on Lashley, and to make matters worse, it was hardly mentioned on this week's Raw. It begs the question of whether they have any decent plans for the belt at Mania, and with only 3 weeks to go, can they build a decent storyline with the belt with such limited time? Additionally, why on earth is Braun Strowman being wasted in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal? While it's good that the WWE have created a match to honour the 8th wonder of the world's legacy, the match is meaningless other than giving B-guys a chance to cash a WrestleMania paycheck. There's certainly nothing wrong with the match itself, but to say it plays any significance in a wrestler's career is ridiculous. Strowman doesn't belong on the warm-up show or as a curtain jerker. He's a main event level player who should either be feuding with someone or competing for a world championship. Another wrestler being wasted on the Raw brand is Elias, who confirmed he will be headlining a musical act at Mania rather than wrestling. Don't get us wrong, Elias always brings us entertainment, but this segment feels like it should be reserved on Raw rather than WrestleMania. The bottom line is ultimately that every segment on SmackDown feels like it's building hype towards Mania, whilst on Raw, many segments are pure filler to accommodate its 3-hour duration. And number 3, a reliable WWE Champion. We've already made a video on why Vince still puts part-timer Brock Lesnar at the forefront of the red brand and continues to hold its most illustrious belt, so we won't go into much detail, but it's evidently one of the main reasons why SmackDown maintains to trump Raw on a weekly basis. Whilst Raw has shown only a handful of credible contenders for the belt, that being Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, SmackDown has many more. The likes of Mustafa Ali, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, The Miz, Rey Mysterio and Samoa Joe could all get their opportunity to win the championship soon. Essentially, Daniel Bryan is the glue that holds the roster together, appearing in wrestling every night on SmackDown, whilst on Raw, the talent is struggling to hold Lesnar at the top of a pyramid. Seth Rollins could very well win the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, but its title scene will take months to rebuild, while SmackDown on the other hand is more sustainable, with all its various incredible challenges. What do you guys think of the build heading into WrestleMania? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.